In 1720, Sir Isaac Newton, the master of the mint, possessed a fortune of roughly £30,000. By the end of the year, he had lost £20,000, a sum that, adjusted for the purchasing power of gold today, exceeds $4 million. Newton's failure was not one of mathematics, but of psychology. He famously declared, "I can calculate the motions of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people." The South Sea bubble was not a spontaneous mania. It was a state-sanctioned debt conversion scheme. It was designed by the Treasury to move £31 million of unsecured national debt off the government's books, effectively picking the pockets of 30,000 individual investors to balance the state's ledgers. By 1719, the British national debt stood at £50 million. The government was paying interest rates as high as 7 to 9% on various war annuities. The Treasury needed to consolidate. The South Sea Company offered to assume £31 million of this debt. In exchange, the government granted them a monopoly on trade with Spanish South America. On paper, this gave Britain access to silver mines and gold. However, the 1713 Treaty of Utrecht only permitted the Asiento de Negros, a contract for 4,800 slaves per year and only one ship of 500 tons for general trade. The trade was a mathematical impossibility. Between 1711 and 1720, the company only managed to launch one significant trading voyage. It was a corporate shell. Its true revenue was derived from the 5% interest the government paid for holding the debt. This was used to pay dividends, creating the illusion of a profitable enterprise. It was a financial feedback loop where the state's debt served as the company's only real asset. Sir John Blunt, the architect, understood that the stock price was the primary product. To pass the South Sea Bill, Blunt distributed £1.3 million in fictitious stock to government officials, including the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the King's mistresses. These individuals received options to buy stock at £150, with the right to sell it back at the market peak without ever putting up a single pound of their own capital. By the spring of 1720, the company became an engine of psychological warfare. Blunt launched 4 money subscriptions, each more aggressive than the last. By June, the price hit £1,000. Blunt introduced low-interest loans from the company itself, allowing investors to buy stock using the company's own credit. By August, market cap hit £200 million, 5 times the physical currency in Great Britain. Exchange Alley became impassable. Aristocratic carriages sat side by side with coal carts. It triggered a wave of bubble companies. One company sought £1 million for extracting silver from lead. Another promised to make salt water fresh. Sir John Blunt successfully lobbied for the Bubble Act, but the plan backfired. Declaring smaller ventures illegal triggered a massive cross-market sell-off. The collapse was a vertical drop into an abyss. By September, it sat at £150. The smart money, the insiders who had been bribed, had quietly liquidated their positions. The despair was profound. The House of Lords debated a resolution to sew the company directors into sacks with poisonous snakes and throw them into the Thames. Enter Robert Walpole, the Screenmaster General. He orchestrated a massive cover-up, sacrificing the directors to save the monarchy. The company survived until 1853. Its mechanics, revolving doors, and extreme leverage became the permanent architecture of global finance. History is not a line. It is a recurring cycle of hubris and ruin. As long as the promise of easy fortune exists, there will always be a Screenmaster waiting. In the wake of the ruin, the public demanded more than justice. They demanded blood. A secret committee was formed to investigate, finding that the company's books were grossly fraudulent, with pages torn out to hide the names of bribed officials. Britain stood on the edge of a Republican revolution. Enter Robert Walpole. Having personally profited from the bubble while remaining publicly cautious, he positioned himself as the only man capable of stabilizing the state. He became the Screenmaster General. Walpole's strategy was to sacrifice the company directors to save the monarchy. He confiscated £2 million of the directors' private estates, roughly £400 million today. This settlement was a political masterpiece of misdirection. It gave the people just enough to keep them from burning down Parliament, while ensuring the king's involvement stayed buried. Remarkably, the South Sea Company did not fold in 1720. It remained the primary manager of the British national debt until 1853. The mechanics, the revolving door and extreme leverage, became the architecture of global finance. From the 1929 Great Depression to the 2008 subprime collapse and even the modern volatility of digital assets, the math remains unchanged. We continue to build palaces on the shifting sands of credit. History is not a straight line. It is a recurring cycle of hubris and ruin. As long as the promise of easy fortune exists, there will always be a Screenmaster waiting to manage the collapse. The South Sea bubble teaches us that the line between innovation and exploitation is dangerously thin. It is a timeless lesson, when the motions of heavenly bodies are predictable, but the madness of people is not. The only certainty is that the bubble will eventually pop. This is fortune and ruin. If you found this autopsy of greed valuable, subscribe to join us as we unearth more untold stories of the past.